I didn't know anything about the history of the house before I started working on it. I had gathered a little bit of information as we got going, and it was interesting.
So 426 Lafayette, come to find out, has an absolutely spectacular history associated with it. I was kind of expecting that might be the case, given the size of home that it is and the era that it was built. It was built approximately in the 1890s. The first record that we really have of anybody living in the house was a Charles Jennings. He actually owned a local perfume company, a perfume and toiletries company, which ended up being pretty successful. They made top-of-the-line products. After the Jennings family had moved out of that home, there was a period of time where the particular neighborhood and that house in general went into pretty tough disrepair. It had been kind of a rough neighborhood. There was a lot of reports of drug houses and drug trafficking in the area, and that area was hit pretty hard. But after it had been divided up into about 5 different apartments, it had stayed that way for a considerable amount of time. Had been chopped up. A lot of the old original staircases that were in the property and a lot of the original character was hidden behind old walls, and kind of framed around everything had been hidden, and it just made to look like 5 fairly generic apartments. Things really took a pretty terrible turn in 1994. There was a horrible fire there, and that fire had destroyed most of the rear end of that house. It had ripped through the back end of that house and had destroyed the roof, a lot of the exterior, and made the house, as well as all 5 units, really uninhabitable. The owner of the property at the time wanted to have that house completely bulldozed down, but the Historic Preservation Committee in Grand Rapids really wanted the property to stand, given the fact that it was in a historic district. It had a pretty rich history. From the time of the fire, really until the most recent owner, James Erdmans, took over the property, it had changed through a handful of different investors' hands.
Was for sale on sometime I think in June in 2014, where I actually saw it, thought maybe there was some opportunity, and called the listing realtor, who was actually on his way out of town for vacation for the weekend with his wife, and was able to get access to the property. And when I saw it, I had a lot of interest, made an offer right away, and was able to actually secure it under contract. I have a little bit of a history as far as historic renovation. It's a lot of fun bringing up these old properties and making them new again. And 2, I felt like the price that it was listed for, there could be some monetary gain as far as a good opportunity. So those 2 things combined somewhat made it a little bit of a no-brainer to kind of take the project on.
When I first learned I was going to be restoring 426 Lafayette, I felt pretty excited. It was going to be challenging for sure, and all the remodels that I do, that's what I like about my job, is it's a challenge. Each job is different. It's not like new construction, and this one was going to be particularly challenging.
We're good, bud.
The most challenging part of working on it was probably just figuring out the layout.
Instead of actually having a table, what I'm thinking we might do is build like a ledge along here. Like a wood ledge with a couple of small bar stools here, so guys could sit here, put a drink on the ledge, hold their pool cue. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a good idea. What do you think about actually building a pool cue case in the wall too? So like this area right here that we've got to work with, let's take this thing and build the cavity back, build like a little built-in in here, and the cues can go right inside here, so we're not using any space outside of it. Maximize our space.
We wanted to open up some walls inside the living room, so we had to configure a steel I-beam.
Stairway right here, a wall there, floor going down. I guess we'll talk about lighting schematics later as far as having a light that shine down on a piece of artwork. Yeah. Okay. Right here.
You know, my initial vision was, and a lot of these projects, is always to try to bring it back to its original state and then also add a little bit to it. So when it was built back in whatever year that was, whether it was the early 1900s or even the late 1800s, it's great to preserve a lot of that character that you don't see every day today, but also integrate some of the things that were not available back then, some of the efficiencies, whether it's energy or technology. And so it's fun to kind of fuse the character from that era with the advancement and the progress of what you see today.
This right here is the dining room. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually we got pocket doors going into the kitchen, pocket doors going into the living room, big dining room here that we're actually getting kind of creative with. We're gonna instead of having it come a big table in the middle, we're gonna actually run it this way, take advantage of all that window space, and have a walkway here. And this whole area right here, we're gonna build like a butler bar. So it's gonna be all wood, like raised panels, from the doorway to the doorway. It's all gonna be wood. There's gonna be a big opening right here with a shelf where people can come get drinks served. On the back side, when you come in that door to go down the stairs, there's going to be a landing. You can either go down the stairs, or you come right back behind the bar right here, and you're going to have shelves, refrigerators, sinks, everything for a fully stocked bar. Right. So you could have a bartender back here, have like a get together for a function. You have a bartender right back here, serving with all the stuff behind him, and then the big huge opening with a nice top for people if you're hosting a large party. You still have a nice walkway right through here with the dining area back in there in the window space, in the bay window. What do you like?
That's going to be pretty cool.
How cool is that?
That's going to be really freaking cool.
So what we're doing here is we're actually going to have a landing inside that living room area, followed by a step and a staircase that comes all the way up here, replacing this beautiful painter's ladder that we love so much.
The challenge of the third floor master bedroom with the angled trusses was definitely a challenge, trying to figure out that layout just to make everything work, trying to fit that bathroom up there, and yes, it was definitely a challenge.
Now, right?
Oh, I love it. That's great. I'll be here on Saturdays and half Sundays. And yeah, houses like this is why I'm doing what I do.
Oh, exactly. It's one thing if you're, building a new house or something like that, but with this kind of stuff.
This is what I love to do, though.
Is it?
The restoring, yeah. When someone says tear it out and put all new in there, it's like, why? When you've got all this, handcrafted materials in attic space.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sanding and gluing and rebuilding.
Now that the property's finally finished, we are extremely excited. It's been a year and a half of a lot of work. I've been through kind of documenting the property, keeping an eye on things, but really the praise goes to all the guys that were hands-on inside of that property. We had different contractors that will normally go through a property in only a matter of a couple of weeks, and they spent months inside of this property. Meticulous detail was spent on every last item within that house, and that's why it took such a long time. These sort of things don't just turn around overnight. You can build a new property in a matter of a couple months, but to restore an old mansion like this and try and make it as historically relevant as what it is, it takes a lot more. It takes a lot more hands-on work, a lot of custom engineering and designing. as opposed to being able to just pick things up from Home Depot or your local supply store. So we're extremely excited. The other thing that we're really excited is to finally get to present it to everybody else. We've kept friends and family in the loop, and I know each one of us talk about it anytime that you know, we get together with friends and family. Everybody I know is always asking me, well, what's the story with 426 Lafayette? When's it going to be finished? Can I go through? And we're really excited to finally be able to open up to all of our friends and family that we've been keeping updated, as well as the community and anybody else that's interested in seeing what turned out to be a really awesome.
Anxious to see the final results, to see everything totally done after it's all cleaned and everything, just to see everything totally done. I'll miss kind of working on it. It's been a long time working on it, so but yeah, anxious to see the final result.
So the plans with 426 Lafayette at this point are to turn it into a high-end Grand Rapids rental. We are really excited about what's gone into the property, and we feel that there's a market for people that are looking for a high-end family rental. This is a unique rental that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else.